Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I'm Matt Carlin. Welcome to another Let's Talk, and this week it is patch notes time, and these are the patch notes for the PTS Week 2, and these are some of the most detailed patch notes and some of the most confusing ones I have ever seen, and it is going to outline all of the stuff that we have in here. But before we get into that, I want to go ahead and take a moment and talk about the reasons behind the main changes coming with the new PTS build, and this is directly from the patch notes. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this really quickly so you guys get a better understanding as to why some of the changes in the patch notes were made. And so let's go ahead and just get into that. So with the opening of Last Stand, they wanted to try something that has never been done before in PvP in the division, and that is normalization. The idea is to reduce the importance of gear building in PvP to leave more room for skilled gameplay. While a player with good and optimized gear will always have an edge, a less geared one should still have a fighting chance to ensure a fair experience. Note that the normalization formula listed below is a first version that we want to go ahead and test in the PTS, and will probably evolve greatly before, if at all, implementation in update 1.6. The same goes for changes such as body shot damage or reload while sprinting. We know that these can be controversial and have been heavily debated already, but we want to go ahead and test these changes on the PTS and see how they impact your gameplay. This does not mean that they will be implemented in update 1.6. It will all depend on the result of the PTS testing and your feedback on the resulting experience. An important thing to note about health and armor changes is that our intention is to move away from a meta where players could stack damage mitigation and face tank enemies without having to worry about their positioning or using cover. We want to go ahead and we want health and survivability to be a thing, but it should not mean that you can run straight to an enemy in open and not be punished for it. Above all, good survivability should come in conjunction with the ability of positioning and using the environment. Finally, you will notice that we went as far as to having a complete pass on gear set bonuses in the PTS. The purpose is to try and offer more valuable choices for you to pick up when you're min-maxing your build, and removing the bonuses that were always disregarded as useless. The end goal with these bonuses changes together and with the health and skill power changes is to make specializing into different builds more valuable and make sure that you always have interesting options to push gear optimization one step further, no matter if you are going for DPS, tank support, or another kind of gameplay style that you are looking for. So here, without further ado, are the patch notes, and I will go ahead and talk about some of the stuff that I've noticed already in the Last Stand. And one thing that I've already noticed is that there's already meta builds already in the Last Stand, and it's no longer a build per se, it's more of a style of play, and that is DPS and Seeker Mines, and they are everywhere. Pretty much if you're not running DPS and Seeker Mines, you are in the minority. Everybody is running them, and it's really hard to get away from that, and I know it is, but hopefully Massive can take the time and fix that and make it so that is not, whether it is, making the Seeker Mines less effective or something like that. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not even going to dive into it here, because this one, I just want to go ahead and get the patch notes out to you. So gear pieces automatically increase the gear score to 256 when you're in the Last Stand, and the Last Stand is activated and available for Season Pass owners right now, so go and get it. If you haven't activated the Season Pass before it was launched, then you're not going to be able to get into the Last Stand until they go around and do another round of account pickups, which will probably be next week. So the gear pieces, once you enter the Last Stand, every gear piece that you have automatically scales up to 256. The main attributes that you have will be increased to the maximum roll, which is 1272. So if you're speccing firearms, it's going to be 1272 firearms. If you're speccing stamina, it's 1272. If you're speccing electronics, it is 1272. It is all the way across the board. The following bonuses will be uniformly scaled: weapon type damage, skill power, and health. All other bonuses remain unchanged. Now, weapons automatically increase the gear score to 256, so if you have a 204, it is still going to work in the same. It's going to be bumped up to 256. The base damage is set to the maximum possible for each weapon. Talents unlock based on the normalized main attribute. Now, the base damage is very important right here, because it doesn't matter if you have an exotic or if you have a yellow, but because there are some base damages that are actually much higher, and you're going to be seeing a lot of M4s and a lot of other weapons very similar to that in the Last Stand game mode. So mods act as normal, other stats, RPM, reload speed, etc. are unchangeable. This is where you start seeing some diversity in who's getting more kills and who's not getting more kills, because the RPM, reload speed, magazines, and stuff like that all affect how you're doing it, especially when everybody's the same. So all players will be set to the same armor mitigation value, which is actually really good, and player talents, gear set bonuses, and weapon set bonuses function as normal, and I found this to be true. So there is still a very heavy focus on what you are going to run in there, and there's definitely a set focus on whether or not you have the right build, and whether it's DPS spec, stamina spec, or whether you're electronic spec. Those things make a huge difference, and you will notice that in the game there is a lot of the same stuff that happens in the Dark Zone, where you're trying to kill a guy and you're just not able to get him down, and because he's able to kill you very easily, and he has it either even spec'd or something like that. But it's very frustrating when you find this in the game, because it reminds you of the Dark Zone. But either way, it's still, The Last Stand feels good. But let's move on from the patch notes. I'm trying to keep my opinions to a minimum, but I'm just trying to give you some ideas to what I see, and you'll actually see some of this, because all this is going to be Last Stand gameplay that is going on in the background. So you'll see some of what I'm talking about. You'll see some of me doing the same thing to other people as I refine my build. But DPS and Secret Mines seem to be the meta, and if you have anything else outside of that, it's going to be hard for you to survive. So game changes. It will no longer be possible to reload while sprinting, and this is probably one of the main things. So if you're sprinting and you reload, it'll drop you out of sprint. If you are reloading and you start sprinting, it'll stop you from reloading. It's very annoying, because you have to break those habits that you've gotten into in the past. Increased hipfire penalty. Weapon spread is now wider, while stability and recoil are also more impacted. This really hasn't had a huge impact on the game, because a lot of times when you're hip firing, you are very close to them, and so it's not a huge deal. Now, the Dark Zone, Koreatown, is no longer classified a landmark. That doesn't affect the game at all, because there wasn't anything there to begin with. So gear sets. The Seeker gear set. After the first round of PTS testing and community feedback, it became clear that the initial direction of this set was wrong. The proposed mechanic was prompting hip firing when we were trying to encourage more interesting gameplay. The overall bonus provided with the 2 and 3 piece bonus was also too strong. The proposed changes should rebalance from 2 and 3 piece bonus and turn this set into a more skill-based long-range combat set, particularly interested for marksman users. No. Not at all. They basically, the bonus, what this is doing now, this is still in the same, it's exactly the same as it was before. If you're not running the Seeker set, usually with a DPS class in the Last Stand, you are probably in the minority. This set still absolutely dominates everything else, because of the 2-body 1 headshot, and it's very easy to run up with a assault rifle and shoot somebody twice in the body, because it's not you have to do 2 to the body and then 1 to the head. It's the next headshot is 200,000 or 200%, and that's what makes this set very unbalanced. So the first set bonus is 10% all resistance instead of the 10% body shot damage. The set bonus of 5% body shot damage is now there for the 3-piece set instead of the 30% critical hit damage, and the set bonus of 4 pieces after 2 consecutive shots to the body. The next headshot will have a 200% headshot damage bonus, and I would say that what this needs to change to is you need to 2 to the body, 1 to the head, just like Muhammad Ali always said. 2 to the body, 1 to the head, because what it is that all you need to do is just shoot at the person at the body and then automatically go up to the head, and that's not the way this should work. It should be 2 consecutive and then 1 consecutive headshot, and that's where your bonus should be. If not, then it's not really going to work. And now let's move on to the Banshee Shadow, and this is actually a really good change. I actually like this change for the Banshee Shadow, and many people asked for the change. I thought I was the only one that was asking for the change as to what they're going to do, because now, no matter what, you don't lose XP and funds when you die in the Dark Zone and you're not rogue. So they went ahead and they changed it. So now with the regular regular rogue buff, there's no change to it, but now while not rogue, damage to rogue players is increased 10%, with the bonus increased to 20% for 10 minutes after being killed by rogue. This is actually a really great piece. You're probably going to see more people trying to body block for rogues or whatever, try and make you go rogue just to get rid of this, but this is actually one of my favorite changes in the patch notes so far. So the Tactician's authority to be more in line with the new skill haste values, and skill haste is actually a pretty big thing. I do enjoy that they put skill haste in there as a set bonus and as a lot of mod bonuses and stuff. They went ahead and they added a bunch of skill haste bonuses. The Tactician's authority, the set bonus for 2 pieces, is now 15% skill haste, so it actually gives you more time to get your skills back up. So if you're not running an electronics build that's super high, you can just go ahead and spec into skill haste and it'll reset your stuff. This is a huge thing. You're going to need this in the last stand. I would highly recommend specking into it. If you're on the PTS, there's actually a way to go ahead and get a bunch of skill haste. There's a bunch of skill haste mods out there. Go get them. So let's go ahead and move into weapons. The Hilde and Air, I mean, whatever it's pronounced. Obviously, the set bonus provided by these weapons didn't work correctly, as the Hilde could benefit from its own critical bonus damage. This has now been fixed. The Valkyria, each hit with Hilde increases critical hit damage, and they actually made a mistake here. It's not Valkyria, it's Air, and it used to be the Valkyria. And the bonus damage, or actually they might still be, I don't know what it is in game. I didn't pay attention to these weapons because they were so broken, and I didn't want to go around cheesing it like most people did. But anyways, the Urban MDR, requested by May, the MDR has finally received a damage boost to bring it more on par with other exotic weapons. The damage boost might seem huge, but we wanted to bring it on more par with marksman rifles since it handles similarly, and this is actually a very nice scout rifle. I would highly recommend picking it up. The base damage is increased by 65%, and it's actually not a huge increase. It is on par now with the M1A. It is actually a really good gun. I would highly recommend it, and it has a distracted damage bonus increased to 18% instead of 10%. It's actually a really good weapon. It's one of my favorites so far, and it's not OP. It's definitely one of the better ones. The Historian I actually like as well, but let's go ahead and move on. The FAMAS. The FAMAS is now called the Bullfrog, which is absolutely a dumb name. I don't like it. They need to find another name for it, you know, maybe the Samaf or something like that. But the base damage is increased by 11.7%. I don't think that this makes any changes to it. It's all right. The Midas, if you saw my review of the Midas, you know I was not a big fan of it, and they went and changed it, and I'm not a big fan of it. So each bullet you hit with reduces your damage by 1% and your target's damage by 1% to a max of 20%. The effect is reduced by 5% per second. And this is just dumb. Just stop. Just stop with the Midas already. Just make it so it slows you down. 1% slows you down, 1% slows them down. Just make that happen. This is stupid with what you're trying to do. It's not going to work. Stop trying to make Midas work. Anyways, Showstopper, base damage increased by 11%. It's actually still pretty underpowered from my testing. The Hungry Hog Glutton now provides 10% extra damage per kill and can stack up to 5 times. This is great for the last stand. And Historian, explosion sound of the Historian has been lowered because it was way too loud. And the L86, the base damage increased by 4%, and the damage fall off at range reduced by 40%. Now, let's go ahead and talk gear stats, because this is where the majority of the PTS got it. With the last PTS, they removed armor, and if you don't know, they removed armor as a gear bonus and replaced it with health. While they considered this to be a step in the right direction, they also noticed that the health bonus was still too strong and that health remained a best in slot choice in many cases. And it still is. It still is. There's nothing you can do. If you're going to allow for more armor or more health, people are always going to take that. But in order to address that and make other choices just as interesting, they went and decided to lower the health bonuses, but also implement a new concept, base health, which is determined by the world tier you are currently in. The end result means that players don't invest in health will have more health in the last PTS, while players who invest heavily will remain at similar levels. This should make for a more constant time to kill. No, it doesn't. It actually, you're still squashing and putting stuff into health, because that's what keeps you alive. And so when you get the chance to do health, you're still doing health. So on top of the already known changes to toughness and skill power, they also did a pass on the gear bonuses, getting rid of those that they were deemed uninteresting and replacing them with more interesting choices as well to make sure that each piece had options available for damage, tanking, and support. The changes listed do not include armor being turned into, or do not include armor being turned into health, because that was in the last patch notes, and health being turned into all resistance. So this is going to be very strange because health was turned into all resistance, and there's a bunch of stuff. So basically, for your chest piece, they removed damage to elites. They removed damage from elites. They added skill haste, enemy armor damage, and health on kill, exotic damage resilience, and all resistance stay the same. Backpack, skill haste, and signature skill resource game was removed, and they added weapon stability. Everything else stayed the same. For the mask, damage to elite was removed. Enemy armor damage was added, and everything else was the same on those. For gloves, damage to elites was removed. Pretty much damage to elite was removed from all the stuff, because they figured that you're doing too much damage to elites. And they added enemy armor damage and skill haste to the gloves. Everything else stayed the same. Knee pads, they removed damage to elite and damage from elite, and added enemy armor damage and skill power. And the holster, they removed damage from elite and pistol damage, and added critical hit chance and reload speed to that. So other changes to stats: enemy armor damage is now a major bonus and no longer a minor. Damage to elites is now a minor bonus and no longer a major. Damage from elite value has been halved, and pistol damage is doubled on gloves. Now, recalibration is something new. With all these changes to gear stats, there are details on how existing gear should convert with this update. And once 1.6 is released, it is important to note that new bonuses will not be available on existing skill or existing gear when recalibrating. Some will automatically be changed, others will be available when calibrating, and others won't be available at all. A more detailed list will be published later. A lot of you were asking me this. So basically, once they do the 1.6 update, yes, your old gear will get updated, but the new bonuses will not be available on existing gear when recalibrating. So your gear will get changed. It just no new bonuses will be when recalibrating. So if you had a native armor bonus not recalibrated, it will be turned into health. If you had a recalibrated armor bonus, with recalibration will reset, and you will be back to the initial bonus when the item was acquired, which is garbage. If you had a native health bonus, it will be turned into an all resistance. So basically, armor's turned into health. Recalibrated armor is basically reset back to what it was whenever you got it, and native health bonus is now turned into the all resistance. If you had a recalibrated health bonus in knee pads, the health roll will remain. If you had recalibrated health bonus in chest piece, no native armor roll on this piece, the health roll will remain. And there's a bunch of other stuff. I guess I'm not going to go through all this. No, when recalibration resets, the money spent will be reimbursed, so you will get reimbursed for that. And based on the recalibration costs of update 1.6, since the recalibration now has a cost cap. If the initial recalibration costed more, you will only be reimbursed according to the cap. So that sucks. So if you had millions of credits invested, well, that sucks. So anyway, skills. After the first PTS, we noticed that skill power builds have had a second life and have started to shine. This is a good thing, but it shouldn't become a new extreme that makes any other kind of build worthless. So they'll be monitoring the situation for future PTS updates. So they're also aware that first aid is considered too weak in its new version. It is absolutely horrible because it hurts solo players, but it definitely hurts everybody else. First aid is weak. The med packs are horrible. They need to just put those back to where they were and adapt. They need they will address that for if issues with it persist. However, they want to go ahead and give it some more time to the community to adapt to the new meta before any changes on the skill. For the time being, they decided to modify skill power's impact on cooldowns to help players who have low skill power and make more room for skill haste as a valuable stat. We have rebalanced a few skills that appeared to be slightly too strong in PTS 1, and they updated the impact of skill power on all skill cooldowns. The result is that skill power will have less of an impact on cooldowns, leading to slightly faster cooldowns for players with low skill power and slightly slower ones for players with high skill power compared to their cooldowns in PTS 1. And this sucks because for the most part, if you have high skill power, you're doing it because you're running a skill build. This completely negates your skill build. So when you're doing a skill build now, you have to go ahead and take in skill haste as a bonus on a lot of different things, or else you're just not going to do it. So here are some changes that affect you all. Disruptor on the sticky bomb is something new. The explosion radius was increased to 9 meters, and it has a very large radius. Disruptor becomes a strong counter to skill proxies such as turret, support stations, or seeker mines. And the support stations, they have gone ahead. All mods radius decreased to from 8 to 6 meters, and the all mods healing rate decreased by 16.7%. Those are actually pretty big. So if you're running Reclaimer, good luck on that. Life support revive time increased from 3 seconds to 5 seconds, which I honestly think that there was nothing wrong with that. So I don't know why they changed it. So the base stats of the support station were a bit too strong, which means that most people couldn't even kill him, especially in combination with the Reclaimer gear set. Now the vendors, they had a quick pass at vendor cost, taken into account the addition of exotic items. Exotic items sold at vendors have had their prices slightly increased. They are now 1,331 Phoenix credits, and gear set items have been lowered to be equivalent to high-end prices. Legendary difficulty. Our goal with legendary difficulty is to add an activity specially tailored for very optimized players. Thus, they purposely designed it to not be achievable by everyone. With that said, they wanted to make sure the experience so far is fair, and that failing feels deserved or at least understandable. Slightly decreased accuracy, aiming, and weapon spread of NPCs. Several updates to NPC behavior in legendary mode. Slightly increased NPC damage to compensate for accuracy and aiming changes. So really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and share something with you. I went ahead and attempted to do one of the legendary missions. It was Napalm Production Facility. I went ahead and attempted to do it solo. I was successful. It was, I'll put up a really quick clip if I can, and it's fairly easy because there are certain things that you can do, and if they don't change it, you're going to be well, maybe I won't even put it up, because this way, some people will be able to solo the Napalm Production Facility, and it's definitely hard, and it's not easy, especially the end of it. It was not an easy experience for me. I definitely did the first part until I figured out what I needed to do. I did the first part about 200 times, maybe. Well, no, maybe 20 times. It was really 20 times. So they fixed a couple bugs. Fixed a bug where NPCs would often get perfect aim. No, they didn't. They didn't fix that. Fixed a bug where Hildur was still named Valkyria. Yeah, they fixed that. Fixed a bug where incursion and weekly rewards would not correctly contain an exotic item. Fixed a bug where exotic items would end up with incoherent talent requirements if they had been recalibrated before the update. Fixed a bug where skill haste value was not currently doubled on gear mods. Fixed a bug where the collision and the armory landmark did not match the geometry. Modified some roamer paths in the DZ to reduce the amount of AI that can be pulled into engagements. Players can now fast travel to all DZ gates, which is actually really nice. You weren't able to do that in PTS 1, and it made dying in the dark zone really sucky in DZ 9, because then you had to run all the way back, and it just took forever. They fixed a bug where the quick draw talent on Damascus had attribute requirements. Fixed a bug where the glutton talent on Hungry Hog would provide more bonus damage than intended. Fixed a bug where the mods could be unequipped randomly when relogging into the game. Dark Zone leaderboards would not work properly, and a bug where the high-end weapons only had 3 talents available when recalibrating instead of 6. So there you have it. Those are your PTS Week 2 updates. They'll be good until probably next weekend or something around there. There's a lot more stuff coming, and I'm going to keep you all up to date on that when I get a chance. I know that this was long, so thanks for hanging out there with me, but that has been my time. I am Mounty Carl. Thank you so much for watching this. If you like this video and you want to see another one up next week and keeping you up to date and just showing you all of my Last Stand stuff, go ahead and drop a like on this. Subscribe to my channel for more interesting information on the Division and stuff like that, and I'll try and slip in that me going through Napalm Production Facility solo on Legendary. That way you guys can see it, and we'll just go from there. So thank you so much for all of us here at the Division Let's Talk. I am Mounty Carl, and we'll see you in the Last Stand. And 1.6 Agent out.